Hello, I'm Adriana. I'm a product designer with over 10 years of experience. I spent the first 5 in marketing and design agencies and in startups. I was even a head of design in one of them, which sounds really cool, but it's actually super easy when you're the only designer in the company. And then I switched it, and I went to product companies and scale-ups like Rike or Vast, or until very recently, Microsoft. And currently, I'm on a break after a layoff. The point is, I spent a lot of time working in product teams with people like product managers, QA, and most importantly, engineers. That brings me to you. Most of you here are engineers. And whether you work in a tight-knit team or in vacuum, if you're a freelancer, work in a product studio or big company, I want to talk in a situation that's probably already happened to you. One day, you're doing your job, and suddenly, a wild designer appears. And you're thinking, what do I do? What do I need this person for? Like, I've always handled UI just fine. Like, what are they doing here? And they start talking about all kinds of things, like user research and personas and user experience. And that's stuff that you might be familiar with, but probably isn't the focus of your day-to-day work. And they have the absolute audacity to not understand the technology as well as you do, which means they keep coming up with designs that are probably not fully feasible and also possibly not very well documented. The nerve of these people. So I'm here to help you scare them away so you can get back to your work without their intrusions. And for that, I have 5 tips. The first and more important tip, when you're supposed to start working with your designer, maybe you've been hired to a company that has designers, or they've been hired as the first designer, or maybe they've always been in your company and you just never get to talk to them, and suddenly you're on the same project. So the very important thing is, do not talk to them, especially not in the beginning. Do not set up any one-on-one when you would introduce yourself and could talk about how you expect them to work with you, or how you usually work, or what kind of documentation you need. Like, definitely don't have any common tool like Figma, or don't let them go into Jira if you use it, or Monday, or Asana, or any of these. Don't have common goals, and don't have common success metric. Like, it's just safest if you block them on Slack or Teams or whatever of that. This is exactly what I did, or what happened when I joined my first product company. I got there, and my design manager took me to the engineering part of the building and said, hey, those are your engineers. And I was like, cool, hey, I'm Adriana, you're the designer. And they're like, OK, hi. And then I went back to my design studio, which was some completely different floor, different part of the building. Then I got my first design tasks, that was rebuild a feature, redesign it. And I started working on it. Occasionally, I had to ask some technical questions because I didn't understand the technology very well. And after some time, I provided designs. And I uploaded them to Zeppelin back then. And sometime later, I saw the implementation, and it looked different than my design. So I did a great thing when I took a screenshot of my design and screenshot of the implementation, and I circled every little difference. And I sent it back to the engineers, and I was like, hey, it's not finished. Like, it doesn't look like the design. And yeah, that made them very, very, very happy. They're super excited about that, especially when there are more and more and more rounds. And this created quite a lot of frustration, and we started complaining about each other. I was like, hey, these engineers just don't do their work well. And they were like, this designer doesn't do her work well. Until finally, we figured that maybe if we just talk what the expectations are, we would figure it out between us. And I found out that they needed different documentation for the design files, but they just never told us. So I didn't know about it. So once I did that, they were happier. And I eventually inserted myself into some of their Scrum ceremonies. Grooming was especially helpful. But yeah, if you do want to fork up the collaboration with your designer, don't do that. Just don't introduce yourself, and don't tell them how you would ideally like to work with them. Or don't even ask them what they would like to do or how they work. Tip number 2. Once you're forced to work with them, refuse to work at the in-progress designs. You need to wait until the last possible moment so that there is a lot of delays because now there's lots of feasibility issues, because their expertise might not be as good as yours when it comes to feasibility. So you just get to wait until the very, very end before you look at it, like right before the deadline. Tip number 3, make "that's not possible" your default answer to any requirements they have, anything. And also the second part of that is refuse to elaborate. Don't say why it's not possible. Just say, no, it's not, bye, build something else. Because if you did say why you think it's not possible, like maybe it's your platform's limitation, or maybe it is possible, but it requires change in architecture. Whatever it is, if you would explain why it's really difficult, why it's hard, why it's different than usual, you might find out that they either didn't think of that, they didn't know that. Maybe they're new in the company and new to the technology. And in that case, it would be an opportunity to educate them and to show your expertise and say, hey, did you know that there is an easier way to do it? Would it work for you, for user experience? Or alternatively, you could find out that they do know that, they do know it's extra work, but it still makes sense. Maybe the impact of the design would be so big on the product, maybe it would increase the sales or just satisfaction or something, that the higher engineering effort makes sense. Or maybe it's part of the company strategy and you just have to do it. But you can avoid all of that if you just say that's not possible and refuse to elaborate. So I highly recommend that. That really works for scaring them away. And if they still want to build whatever you told them that's not possible, and you're kind of forced to, maybe by your engineering manager, by product manager or something, at least just be upset about it. Like, just keep saying, like, that's bad, that's bad, that's bad. I would do it differently. And if nothing else works, then just quietly build something different. They can have fun, right? Like, for example, when I was in Microsoft, they don't have QA there. So the engineers, there's a strategy for the entire company that engineers need to be able to do their own testing. So and the releases are typical twice a year. So the last sprint or two before the half-a-year release, the engineers are supposed to do their testing. So it's really, really, really easy to sneak stuff that nobody's going to get to see. And I saw that happening. For example, I took over a project from my fellow designer. And I went to the engineers, and I was like, hey, so I have this Figma file, design file, and I just want to check if everything is like, the same in implementation. So could you please send me a link to the testing environment? And they were like, we built it differently. And I was like, why? Tell me more about it. And they were like, yeah, the designer wasn't listening. We kept giving him feedback, and he just wouldn't listen to it. So that makes no sense. So we just changed it. And I was thinking, well, I'm really, really grateful that they trust me to tell me that, so we can work with that. But also, what a breach of trust. This is something that is not ideal, but it definitely works for scaring the designers away. If they keep designing, if they think that they're doing their best work, and they have it even validated with users, and then you just build something else. Well, if you do all 5 of these, if you don't set up any collaboration processes or expectations from the beginning and don't have any regular checkpoints when you would meet your designer, where you could look at in-progress designs, when you keep saying that stuff is just not possible, or just say you don't like it, I don't care, I don't like it, and if you then keep building something else, then congratulations. You probably reached your goal, you scared them away, and you can enjoy feeling like this. And the designer probably feels a little bit like this. Now, maybe this was actually not that much fun. Maybe you're actually thinking, it kind of sucks, I will not go to work, and every single time I see them, they're annoyed, not ideal. Maybe you even heard that crazy idea that the best products are built with both technical excellence, they're scalable, they're great, and at the same time with design excellence, which means they're easy to use, they're even possibly pleasant to use. So you're thinking, maybe I'll just switch it up. And in that case, instead of don't set up any collaboration processes, you can just meet them. Once they join the company, or you join the company, or whoever joins the team, you just get to work with them fresh start. You just introduce yourself. If they don't reach out, they might do it. It's not one person's responsibility, but if they don't do it, because maybe they're scared of you already, or maybe they're just not experienced yet, or maybe they're very busy, you can reach out to them, and you can tell them how you used to work with designers, and what works for you, and what you would like to see in the collaboration. And you can also set up regular checkups. You can invite them to your Scrum ceremonies if you have some, or if that works for you. Sometimes the designer has multiple product teams, and they can't do that. So it's up to you how you decide it, but you can do it, whatever works for you. And you can also define responsibilities. Like who's responsible for what during the development of the product. So that later you know when you can trust them with decisions, and when they can trust you with decisions. You can start looking at the in-progress designs. That way you can provide your ideas. Lots of time the designers do not have full technical background. Some do, most of them don't. So this is a great opportunity to utilize yours. So you actually participate into what's being built. You can also do full team reviews when everybody from the team goes to design file when it's already still very much in progress, not finalized. And you can provide feedback and ideas. And that way you know that when you're later going to be estimating your work, it's already feasible, and your estimates are probably will be decently accurate. They never fully are, of course. You can also start explaining why you think something's not possible, or just why it's hard. For example, you can just say if it's a platform limitation, or if it's something that would require really, really large change, or if you're just maybe not sure how to do it and it would require technical research first. You can also educate your designer a little bit if they don't know your technology, which means you can, for example, show them documentation that they can use, so they don't have to always ask questions, but they can just get ready themselves. And you can try to focus as much as possible on data when you're making decisions about what's most usable design. And you can also just simply decide that the designer is going to have the full responsibility over the quality of design, the usability and value. And honestly, if they're going to keep working it up long term, they're not going to stay in the company anyway, so that's not going to be a problem anymore. So you can just trust them and believe they're going to do their best job. And if you're building something different because the designs are not very well documented, this is a great opportunity to talk about it. And if it's not because of that, if it's for any other reason, and you've done all the other things, you build a relationship with them, then it's easy to just ask them. Like, hey, I don't understand, or like, I think that this is different than what we talked about. Let's talk about it. In that case, you might end up actually enjoying the collaboration if you do all 5 of those. Amen.
I said it before, but the design of the presentation is just so cool.
I'm a designer.
So we got 2 questions in the event here. The first one is, what do I do if I'm not sure what my designer does?
Yeah, exactly.
How should I reach out to them?
Yeah, then that's a great question to ask them. Go to like, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm this kind of engineer, and I see that you joined the team, or I was told you joined the team, and I've either never worked with designers before, or I did, and I'm still not sure what they do. Can you please tell me how you see your role? Like, what do you think is your value? What do you plan on bringing into the team? And hopefully, after they answer, you're gonna know better. If they're a good designer, they should be able to explain it.
Thank you. And the second one is, what design tools did you use in your career, and what tool is the best in your opinion?
So Figma, if you heard about it, yes, there is a guy who has a t-shirt logo. Hi, Shimon. And by the way, Shimon and Clara next to him, we're going to have a talk later today for engineers and designers, how to work very well in Figma together. So that's the best tool because it's highly collaborative, super easy to share. People can comment, people can work there together. You always get to see work in progress. Other tools that I sometimes use are Miro. There is now similar tool called FigJam that's adjacent to Figma, but Miro is still easier to use for everybody, not just for designers. So it's a place where you can make like all kinds of things like mind maps, or you can run like affinity maps exercises. You can just lots of post-its and diagrams, and it's extremely versatile. So those are my two favorite. I did use Sketch a long time ago, but I was actually the reason I've asked switch from Sketch to Figma, because Sketch is nowhere as versatile.
Thank you. There's a new one. Do you ever keep your design in sync with the actual product in case the evil devs build it differently?
Yes, actually that's my goal. It's not always possible in extreme complex products, just because you can't draw like everything, it would make any sense. But at least the most important core things, or if it's the small product, then I usually keep the entire product same. And yes, I do always aim for full parity of them, which is why QA loves me, because then they use my designs as a base for their UI testing. So that's the goal. If I find out that something in the design library doesn't match the code library, I try to investigate. Is it because the design is like already showing like a future state, or is it because somebody forgot to change it? Like I always go to the owners of the design library, the code library, and try to figure out why the discord happened. And then I try to implement it. Or if I can't, because for example, they said, oh, in the design library, we do try to like keep it up to date with the code library, but we don't have time, then I at least try to put notes in my designs for the engineers. Like, hey, do you see this? Sorry, I don't have the right component. So link to the documentation, go here and use this. Sorry, it will be, they said in 3 months, for example.
We are getting a little more. So another one, which tools can help with transfer of design tokens and design token changes?
For me, it's still Figma. I just Figma. Yeah.
Simple answer. Okay, and last question here, maybe kind of, well, let's say, interesting one. Why did you choose this topic for a presentation?
I was thinking about what could be interesting for engineers. And I talked to my engineering friends. And because, for example, when I said that my iOS developer once hated me, that was at the past, we're now actually very good friends. And we joke about it. We're like, yeah, remember when you hated me? I thought you were such a bad engineer. She's like, you were the worst designer. So we really like go have lunch every 2 weeks or now something. So I talk to people like that. And I also did wider research with people. And I was thinking about my own experience. And I was thinking, what could be interesting for engineers to hear from a designer? And because I'm now much wiser designer than I was in the beginning when I just kept sending people notes like basically you're not doing your job well. And I now know that I should reach out to engineers and introduce myself and say what I'm doing and ask them about their experience and how they like to work. I found out that that's still very much not the case. Last time I did it was when I joined Microsoft 2 years ago, and I was still told by all the engineers there, wow, no designer ever reached out to me. And I was like, also wow. So I figured that, designers could do this and should do this, and it would be great if all do this. It's just still not happening. So I'm trying to figure out how to bring this information in front of all you and say, you can also do it. If you see issues, and from what I was asking about them, from what I found out, there are issues with the collaboration. Very often people don't know what a designer does, how to work with them, when to work with them. So I was thinking this is still very much an active topic, and I would like to give you some tools how to deal with it if this is bothering you.
Okay, great, thank you. So now 3 things. The first is, I want to remind you that in Eventi app you can rate the speakers, so we would love some feedback on all the talks you hear. The second is, Adriana will be available at Speakers Corner, which is just outside of this room for the next couple of minutes, so feel free to join her for a discussion. And the last part, thank you, it was amazing.
Thank you.